There are voices that entertain, and there are voices that awaken. Morgan Freeman's voice, deep, deliberate, and textured with the sands of time, does not merely narrate stories, it stirs ancient memory. It echoes like the slow movement of a distant planet or the hum of the Earth's magnetic heart. And if you listen not just with your ears but with the inner faculty of your being, the place where symbols speak and silence teaches, you'll realize something extraordinary. Morgan Freeman's journey through this life is more than a biography. It's a blueprint, a spiritual code etched not in ink, but in experience, in suffering, in patience, in grace. To understand why his path matters to yours, we must momentarily discard the surface lens through which we often view celebrity and success. This is not about fame or fortune, it is about frequency, resonance. Just as tuning forks align when struck in harmony, your soul recognizes something familiar in Freeman's story, a hidden pattern, a signal from the invisible latticework of destiny. You don't admire him because he is on the screen. You are drawn because he reflects something ancient inside you, the part of yourself that knows beyond doubt that you were born for more. Morgan Freeman's life is not linear. It moves like a river carved through mountains, patient and relentless, wearing down resistance, not through force, but presence. Before he was a household name, he was a man weathering obscurity. Not the kind of obscurity that comes from idleness, but the kind that tests your essence. He did not become famous in youth, as many do. Instead, he wandered through decades of unnoticed brilliance. The world had not yet tuned into his frequency, but he never stopped emitting it. Like a lighthouse spinning in a fog that had not yet lifted. This is the first clue. The spiritual path is not always illuminated. Sometimes it asks you to walk through long nights with nothing but your inner fire to guide you. And Morgan Freeman did just that. His early years were marked by near invisibility. He was not yet the voice of God, the narrator of universal truths, or the cinematic embodiment of wisdom. He was simply waiting, not passively, but with intention. He honed his craft. He showed up. He listened. And somewhere in the silence, the blueprint began to reveal itself. In many ways, his life represents a hidden archetype, the keeper of time, not in the literal sense, but as one who moves in rhythm with divine timing. He did not chase after destiny with desperate hands, he aligned with it. And that alignment, slow, humble, and exacting, is the essence of spiritual awakening. It is not an explosion, it is an unfolding. And if we follow his example, we see that the unfolding often requires us to trust what we cannot see, to believe in the architecture before the structure rises. There is also something elemental about his presence. When Morgan Freeman speaks, it's as though the earth itself is rumbling, low and grounded, yet brimming with ancient intelligence. That voice is not just a talent. It is a frequency of consciousness. It reminds us of the great storytellers of tribal lore, of prophets on mountaintops, of sages in hidden caves. Through him, you are reminded that words can open portals, that sound can be sacred, and that sometimes the most ordinary sentence can carry extraordinary light, if spoken from a place of inner knowing. So why does his journey matter to your awakening? Because in Morgan Freeman, we see the invisible made visible. We see what it looks like to stay rooted in purpose, even when the world is not watching. We see that power does not always roar. It can whisper, wait, and still shape empires. His life shows us that the soul has its own timing, and that when you honor that timing, the universe begins to conspire in your favor. But this is more than admiration. This is revelation. Morgan Freeman's journey contains spiritual coordinates. His patience teaches surrender. His voice teaches embodiment. His delayed success teaches faith. His presence teaches that greatness is not something you perform. It is something you remember. This is where your own spiritual awakening begins. In the mirror of someone who walked the path before you, not with flashy signs or instant rewards, but with steady footsteps into the unknown. In every moment, Freeman chose presence over panic, faith over frenzy. He laid down stones on the path you now walk. As we begin this exploration, remember, This is not a documentary about a man. It is a map hidden within a story, a cosmic breadcrumb trail pointing back to yourself. And the deeper you go, the more you may realize your voice, your timing, your divine delay is no accident. If Morgan Freeman's journey is a map, then the themes that underlie his life form the invisible architecture of that map. Its ley lines, its gravitational currents, its sacred geometry. Just as ancient temples were built in alignment with stars, his life seems aligned with something larger than logic, something orchestral, symphonic, and it's within these harmonies, these deeper frequencies, that the spiritual blueprint begins to shimmer into view. To trace this blueprint, we must peel away the external narrative of late success or timeless voice and step into the realm of the unseen. Freeman's journey is marked not by the speed of ambition, but by the slowness of spiritual ripening. He didn't arrive quickly because the soul rarely does. Instead, his life moves according to a different set of laws, not the linear law of calendars, but the cyclical law of becoming. At the core of his story is the theme of divine timing. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, Morgan Freeman is the slow-burning lantern. His fame did not erupt. It awakened, as if summoned by something beyond his own effort. For decades, he acted without being noticed. Yet he did not vanish into bitterness. This is no small feat. Most people interpret delay as denial, but spiritual blueprints operate on a different time signature. They require endurance, yes, but more than that. They require trust in the unseen architect. Freeman trusted even when no one was looking. And perhaps this is the second theme, inner fidelity. He was faithful to something within himself long before the world validated it. He listened inward, not outward. This is spiritual integrity, the ability to remain loyal to your gift, your essence, your truth, even when the outer world reflects nothing back. That fidelity is not passive, it is warrior-like. It requires one to defy the illusions of lack, of missed opportunity, of being forgotten. And in resisting those illusions, Freeman exemplifies a deeper truth, that your gift is not on a timer, it's on a mission. Another current running through his life is the sacred power of voice, not just the literal sound, but voice as vibration. His voice is not just resonant because of its bass tones or clarity. It resonates because it is congruent with his essence. His outer sound mirrors his inner frequency. In spiritual terms, this is alignment, the merging of word and being, vibration and vessel. And this is no accident. Your own voice, whether spoken aloud or expressed through action, is your spiritual signature made audible. To find your voice is to begin waking up to who you truly are. But voice also implies narration. And this is where Freeman's symbolic significance deepens. He is the narrator of countless films, many of which explore time, purpose, and the divine. And it's no coincidence. He represents the archetypal guide, the wise one, the one who names what is happening so you can see it clearly. In spiritual traditions across time, there has always been the one who speaks the hidden truths, who tells the story of the soul's journey through illusion and back to remembrance. Freeman has, consciously or unconsciously, stepped into that role, not just in film, but in culture. And through him, we are reminded of our own need to narrate from within, to become aware of the story we are telling ourselves, and to edit it until it aligns with who we truly are. There is also the theme of transformation without spectacle. Freeman's life is not defined by wild turns or scandalous reinventions. It is defined by quiet evolution. This too is spiritual. Awakening is often portrayed as sudden and blinding, but more often it is slow illumination, the dawning of clarity like sunlight rising over the ocean, imperceptible at first, yet unstoppable. In this way, Freeman reminds us that greatness does not require firework displays. It requires continuity, devotion, a long obedience in the same direction. And finally, there is the theme of embodiment. Freeman never feels like he's performing. He feels like he is. Every word, every gesture is saturated with a kind of presence that can't be faked. This is the essence of spiritual awakening, not to float above life, but to become fully in life, rooted, real, radiant. Freeman doesn't act like a wise man. He simply is, because wisdom is no longer a concept for him. It is embodied, lived, spoken through pause and pauses, through glances and silences. These core themes, divine timing, inner fidelity, voice as vibration, narration as power, quiet transformation, and embodied wisdom, are not just elements of Freeman's path, they are universal invitations. Each one is a spiritual doorway, not to admire from afar, but to walk through. They offer a template for your own unfolding, not a rigid plan, but a living rhythm. And the more you align with these rhythms, the more your life begins to echo with the same gravitational beauty, the quiet force of a soul that knows where it's going, even when no one else does. In this sense, Morgan Freeman does not hold the key to your awakening because he is famous. He holds it because he has lived in harmony with laws most have forgotten. He has tuned himself to the music of becoming. And in doing so, he shows you what is possible when you live not from the world's demands, but from the soul's design. In the architecture of ancient temples, every column, shadow, and stone told a story, not just of gods or kings, but of the unseen forces that shape human consciousness. In much the same way, Morgan Freeman's life contains symbolic architecture, a temple of meaning, hidden behind the veil of biography. And if we approach his story as a mythic narrative, rather than a mundane chronology, the spiritual blueprint he represents begins to illuminate itself like sacred writing in moonlight. Freeman, in the mythic sense, is not merely a man. He is the sage incarnate, an archetype that exists in every culture, every lineage, and every age. He is the one who has seen both shadow and light, not as separate realms, but as necessary companions. He reminds us that wisdom is not the absence of pain, but the alchemy of it. In him, we see the sage who does not preach from a mountaintop, but who walks among the people, quietly radiating a deeper truth with every word, every pause, every gaze. He is not just a narrator of fictional stories, he is a living parable. One could imagine his early years as the season of silence, a sacred motif repeated in every transformational myth. Moses in exile, Buddha under the tree, Christ in the desert. Silence always comes before voice. Obscurity always comes before clarity. These periods are not punishments, but preparations, initiations that crack open the shell of ego and expose the unbreakable seed of the soul. For Freeman, these decades of quiet labor, underappreciated roles, and humble persistence were not wasted time. They were sacred incubation. Like the caterpillar liquefying in the cocoon, he was dissolving the false self to make space for emergence. The silence carved out a depth in him that cannot be taught. And this is the blueprint speaking again. Many people fear the void, the waiting, the not yet. But Freeman's symbolic life shows us that the void is where the voice is born. That delay is not death, it is gestation. In the spiritual dimension, nothing is more fertile than stillness. The universe does not rush, stars are not impatient, and neither was he. And then there is the spiral, another sacred motif that runs through Freeman's narrative. A spiral is not a straight path. It circles, it loops, it revisits old ground, but from a higher angle each time. This is how evolution works, not as a ladder, but as a spiral staircase of becoming. In Freeman's life, we see him return to similar roles, similar themes, mentor, guide, judge, prophet, but each time with greater gravitas, greater dimensionality. This is not repetition, it is refinement. It is the soul circling back to deepen its own truth. Even his most iconic roles are symbolic echoes of his own path. In Bruce Almighty, he plays God, not as a thunderous tyrant, but as a quiet, compassionate teacher. He teaches not through miracles, but through mirrors, inviting the protagonist, and by extension, the viewer, to become the answer they seek. In The Shawshank Redemption, his character Red speaks the language of quiet resilience, bearing witness to the slow, grueling crawl toward inner freedom. And in Through the Wormhole, Freeman becomes the voice of the cosmos itself, asking the questions that science, philosophy, and mysticism have always danced around. Who are we? Why are we here? What is the soul? Each of these roles is not random casting. They are mythic echoes. His characters often stand at thresholds, between ignorance and awakening, between despair and hope, between illusion and truth. He plays the one who knows and yet never imposes, the one who waits for you to arrive. He is, in essence, the spiritual witness, the part of your own psyche that watches your life unfold and gently asks, "Do you see it now?" Even the way he ages is symbolic. He wears age like a crown, not as a burden. In a society that idolizes youth and fears wrinkles, Morgan Freeman stands as a reminder that true power ripens, that the soul becomes more potent with time, not less. In many ways, his very presence defies the cultural spell of urgency and decay. He shows us that age is not the end of relevance, it is the beginning of revelation, that the wrinkles on his face are not signs of wear, but glyphs in an ancient language. The deeper symbolic current here is this: you too are living a mythic life. You too are spiraling through lessons, pausing in silence and preparing for emergence. And if you see Morgan Freeman not just as a figure on a screen, but as a symbol in your own dream, then you begin to awaken. His voice becomes your voice, his patience, your path, his archetype, your invitation. In truth, Morgan Freeman's story is not about him. It is about us. He is the embodiment of what lies dormant in each of us. The sage, the narrator, the spiral walker, the voice that waits beneath the noise, waiting to be remembered. And when we honor the symbols in his story, we are really honoring the symbols in our own. Because this too is part of your spiritual awakening. The realization that life is not literal, it is allegorical. Every event is a metaphor, every struggle a riddle, every person a mirror. And Morgan Freeman, quietly, powerfully, patiently, has become one of the most luminous mirrors of all. If the spiritual blueprint expressed through Morgan Freeman's journey is to mean anything, it must transcend admiration and become embodiment. It must leave the sacred scroll of metaphor and enter the bloodstream of your daily life. Wisdom, after all, is not what you know, it is what you live. The voice of the sage within you does not speak in grand philosophies alone, but in your choices, your posture, your presence. The question is not whether Morgan Freeman's life contains lessons. It is, how will you live them? First, consider the nature of divine timing as something more than poetic abstraction. It's an energetic law, one that resists the pressure of instant culture. Freeman didn't sprint towards success. He waited until the moment was ripe. He worked, yes, but he didn't force. In your own life, how many doors have you tried to pry open too soon? How many times have you mistaken delay for failure? Morgan Freeman teaches in every line on his face that delay is often design. The seed planted today doesn't bloom tomorrow. It must disappear into darkness, trust the soil, and dissolve before it can sprout. So if you are in a season of invisibility, if your gifts are unrecognized, your voice unheard, understand that you may not be buried, you may be planted. The blueprint insists on preparation. The soul, like any architect, sketches in private before building in public. Freeman's decades of quiet work are not to be pitied, but envied. They carved him into a vessel that could carry power without being shattered by it. What if the same is true for you? This brings us to the next integration point: presence over performance. Freeman has never seemed desperate for attention. He does not grasp, he anchors. His power comes not from chasing light, but from becoming a source of it. You can do the same. Begin to shift from performance to presence. Whether you are in a boardroom, a cafe, or a conversation with a stranger, resist the impulse to perform your worth. B. Listen deeply. Speak with intention. Don't just take up space. Hold it. The world listens differently when you do. And voice. Oh, the power of voice. Freeman's signature tone is not just vocal, it is energetic. It arises from stillness, from alignment. You may not have his timbre, but you have your own resonance. You were born to speak, not just in sound, but in truth. Begin practicing vocal honesty. Speak less, mean more. When you talk, let your words carry the vibration of what you believe. Even silence, when rooted in authenticity, has a voice. Let your energy speak louder than your volume. His story also invites you to examine your relationship with self-narration. Freeman's career as a narrator is not just artistic, it is spiritual. In every human mind, a narrator is at work, crafting stories about who you are, what's possible, and what is not. Most people let that narrator run wild, unconsciously repeating stories of fear, inadequacy, or urgency. But what if you became the conscious narrator of your life? What if you slowed down and rewrote the script? Morgan Freeman's voice is captivating because it is intentional. Yours can be too. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what story am I living today? And is it mine or one I've inherited? Begin speaking new lines. Narrate your life in a way that reflects your becoming, not just your history. The soul listens. The universe responds. Then there's the sacred lesson of steadiness. Freeman didn't arrive through viral moments. He emerged through consistency. Show up to your purpose the way a monk shows up to morning prayer, not for recognition, but for alignment. The work you do when no one is watching becomes the foundation of who you are when everyone is. If you wish to walk the blueprint, begin here. Do what you're called to do, regardless of who sees it. The soul records everything. Lastly, reflect on the wisdom of age. In a world that glorifies acceleration and novelty, Morgan Freeman invites us to slow down, to ripen. Your spiritual power does not diminish with time, it deepens. Each year lived with awareness etches new wisdom into the body. Your voice, your presence, your choices, they all become more refined, more distilled. The more you age consciously, the more you become a sage in your own right. Don't fear time. Wield it. Age like a temple, not a machine. In practical terms, living the blueprint means embracing spiritual patience, cultivating deep presence, using voice with sacred intention, rewriting your self-narration, showing up with consistency, and honoring the elder within. It means seeing your own life as mythic, not because of spectacle, but because of depth. You are not just surviving, you are sculpting something eternal. Morgan Freeman's journey is a mirror, yes, but only if you choose to look into it not as a spectator, but as a participant. The blueprint he embodies is not behind glass. It is within reach, but it must be walked, not watched. Lived, not quoted. In this way, the cinematic becomes the sacred, the actor becomes the archetype, and you, yes you, become the one who awakens, not by changing your life entirely, but by seeing it differently, as something designed, something sacred, something waiting to be voiced. There is a hush that falls at the end of a great story, not because it has ended, but because something eternal has been stirred awake. You feel it now, don't you? That subtle vibration just beneath the surface of your skin. That sense that Morgan Freeman's life was never just his own. It was an echo, a memory, a mirror held up to your sleeping divinity. As we close this journey, not with a period, but with a turning of the page, we return to where we began, the blueprint. But now it's no longer abstract. It breathes, it pulses, it waits. You have seen it in the architecture of patience, in the cathedral of presence, in the mythic spiral of evolution that marks not only Freeman's life, but yours. And the question is no longer, what can I learn from him? The question is now, how will I remember myself through him? You see, the blueprint does not belong to Morgan Freeman alone. He is simply one who honored it, who followed it, who endured the obscurity, the silence, the unglamorous climb. And in doing so, he demonstrated something rare and holy, what it looks like when a soul refuses to compromise its truth for the world's applause. His journey holds the key to your awakening because it proves a startling truth, that your destiny will not scream, it will whisper. It will not come in fireworks, but in footsteps. You will not find it outside of yourself, but deep within the chambers of your own being. where your voice, your timing, and your story are already sacred. Freeman's presence whispers this: you are not late, you are right on time. Every wound, every detour, every silent year was not a delay, but a design. What feels like exile may be initiation. What feels like obscurity may be the womb of your becoming. You too are forming something holy. And so, what now? You cannot return to the ordinary story of yourself, not fully. You have been altered, if only slightly. A thread has been tugged, and the tapestry of your life has revealed a hidden pattern. You've seen it. In the silence, in the spiral, in the voice that waits. And once seen, the blueprint begins to hum louder. It calls you not with pressure but with presence. Let it. Let the delays in your life become your devotion. Let your voice become your anchor. Let your age become your authority. Let your story become your ceremony. Begin walking not for applause, but for alignment. Wake not just to the day, but to your design. Become the sage in your own home, the narrator of your own myth, the Freeman of your own fate. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more resonance, more people who have listened long enough to speak from the soul. Morgan Freeman reminds us that to be powerful is not to be loud, it is to be true. And that truth, once embodied, becomes unshakable, unmistakable, undeniably you. So speak with intention, move with grace, honor the divine delay, trust the voice inside. And when in doubt, remember this: the same source that shaped him is shaping you. The blueprint is already within you. Now, walk it.